7:02. Thank you. And Mike is on. Okay. So and Valerie's on. So again, we're opening the December 12th meeting of the Ashford Planning and Zoning Commission at 7:03 p.m. We will call to order the seating of alternates. We have one regular member out, Catherine, and Doug is here. So Doug will be seating you for Catherine Sampson.
Okay, Jeff, thank you.
Full complement of 9. Thank you. Okay. So we will start with the approval of the minutes from our November 14th meeting that Alex provided. Does anyone have any issues or corrections or changes to the minutes?
No,
I'll take one.
I'll move that we accept the minutes and thank you,
Janet.
Valerie.
Janet moves. Do I have a second?
second, Jerry.
Second from Jerry Dufresne. Dufresne, I'm sorry, Dufresne, I'm sorry.
I'm used to that.
I'm sure you are, just from me alone. Okay, so second from Jerry, and all in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Abstentions?
Dick Williams. I wasn't here.
Yes, thank you, Dick.
I must say that was one of the longest set of minutes I've seen for quite a while.
Yeah, it was a very active hearing, and get ready for tonight. Okay, so moving on with the acceptance of the minutes, so moved. Public comments, again, for those items not listed on the agenda or for our public hearing, do we have any comments from the public? And if so, please state your name.
This is Ralph Sherman. I'm new to your process, so my intent would be to discuss the 34 Amadon application for short-term rental.
Well, that is on our agenda tonight for public hearing, so you will have an opportunity to speak to that during that session. We're more looking at if there are other items that aren't captured or for future items to be discussed by the commission.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, having no public comment, we'll go to bills. Alex, any bills
I
submitted?
have no new bills.
No new bills. Thank you. And going on to correspondence. Any correspondence?
None, just stuff I sent out.
Just what you sent out. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, being as that brings us to our public hearing section, we will start with our public hearing. The first public hearing we have is for PZ 2322-3, excuse me, again, that's PZ-22-3, a special permit per section 317D for short-term rental at 34 Amadon Drive. Owner applicant is R. Corvo. Thank you. Okay, so we did receive the application previously, and all information, all fees have been received. A comment on the application itself has to do with the applicant speaking with Bruce Fitzpatrick, our Ashford wetland agent, regarding the inland wetlands application was needed or not, and he expressed that one was not needed for the short-term occupancy. Use of the house and yard would not change current residency effect on the wetlands. So that was stated in the original application. I hope everyone has been able to kill a tree like I did in going through and looking at the application material for tonight. And I guess we'll start with the Carvos, if you'd like to have an opening statement regarding your application.
Yes, I'm Bob Corvo. I'm here with my wife, Susan Corvo. We have owned the property at 34 Amadon Drive for almost 20 years. We have never rented the property in the past. We've decided that we'd like to do it. And we're fully understand that there is a restriction on the number of periods per 6-month period of rental, being 3 per each 6-month period. We intend to do the rentals on a 7-day basis and no shorter periods, and possibly a longer period of time. My wife and I, as we stated in the application, will be managing the property. We'll be within an hour's distance from the property if there were any problems. We have 2 abutting neighbors. One is Kay Warren, the other is Dick Dewey, who have told us they would alert us if there were any problems. And I believe Mr. D'Amato has in his file letters from them not objecting to our application. I believe our application pretty much speaks for itself. If the board members have it, I don't think it's necessary for me to read it at all. So if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Carvo.
You're welcome.
I'll wait for mine. Does anyone from the commission members have any questions of the Carvos and their property? Hi, Janet. You're muted.
Okay, sorry.
You're good.
Is this your primary
Got it.
residence?
No, it's not. It's pretty much a summer property for us. Spring, we started around April and stay there till well into November.
Our regulations do say that unless I'm reading it wrong, the property must be the primary residence of the owner under D3.
In reading the definitions, I don't have the page numbers. It says that the hosted short-term rentals have to be a primary residence, and it says under unhosted that the owners have to be within an hour away from the property. It says nothing in the definitions about being primary resident, even though it says that there seems to be a conflict between the two. When I spoke to Mike D'Amato, was he on the line here today?
Mike is on. Yes, he is.
I saw him here earlier. He and I had discussed that very situation prior to my making the application.
And what was the result of that discussion, Mr. Carvo?
I'll let Mike speak to it.
So the other thing that, unless I misheard when Bob and I spoke, this is not a full-time property. He cannot actually occupy the property 365 days a year. So he lives there for the period of the year that he can, but he can't actually live here 365 because of the construction of the property and some other particulars. And perhaps Bob can elaborate on that a bit more. I don't know if it's related to the well or whether it's a summer.
The issue with the property is that we have a shared well across the street with Kay Warren, and the water line is not below the frost line. And there are issues of connecting. One is getting approval from the association to go through the road. And the other is that Kay Warren would prefer not to bring the water line for us to disturb the road at all. So we have maintained it. And the reality is that we're there from April through November. And this last year, we're there almost the entire period of time. But we receive our mail and at our other house.
Excuse me, okay, thank you. Someone needed to, could you repeat that again, Mr. Kerr? I know you said you're there from April to November, approximately 8 months.
Yeah, a little less than 8 months. We're not there every single day, but from this year, from May straight through November, we were there just about every single day.
Mention mail.
Hmm?
The mail.
And I also had mentioned that we do receive our mail in Enfield.
And when are you planning to offer this for rentals?
Probably 3 weeks between like mid-May to June. And then probably a little bit later in the second half of the year, probably August. It'll only be basically six rentals.
And would you mind describing your parking situation?
We park on the right-hand side of the property. We used to park in the front, but there has been a land dispute with my abutting neighbor who has a claim that I can't park there. So we have actually parked on the side of our property since 19 years that we've been there. There's enough room there for more than 3 cars parking.
And what is the surface on that area?
The surface is grass.
Okay.
And where we originally moved in there was a gravelly type soil. And I covered it with topsoil and put grass over it.
And you're not looking to make any changes to that parking situation?
We hadn't intended to, if that's an issue with the board, we could certainly discuss it.
Well, probably gets into other issues such as permeable surface area. I guess going back to a question, and Mike, I don't know if, I'm not looking to put you on the spot. I'm just looking, when one looks at the definition of primary residence, you're saying that, the Carol's, you're saying you don't receive your mail there. You receive that at your Enfield address?
Mm-hmm.
And everything such as driver's license, utility bills, voter registration is in the Enfield address?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Utility building.
We do receive our utility bills. And
We have utility bills with the address, with the, on that property.
Mhm.
We have electric and, electric bill on that property.
And
We
ca-
receive the bill in Enfield, but it's on
And-
that property.
and cable.
Because again, I don't think anyone is requiring 365 days for anyone to be a primary residence, especially when you're spending 8 months there or more, 7 to 8 months out of a year's time. However, the requirement for being a primary residence seems somewhat, as you had stated, Mr. Corvo, a little there's 2 different types of definitions here when it comes to primary residence. I do see in some of the material that, again, you have property owners within a 200-foot radius of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And of those, I understand you have you were able to supply Mike with 2 letters, one from 34 Amadon K. Warren, and one from 32 Amadon Richard Dewey, to that end. And they are in support and have no issues with your short-term rental at this point, which is very nice of them to do.
Yes, it was.
Okay. We have received I'm sorry, I don't mean to walk over. Does anyone have any questions? Mark, you have a question? Go right ahead. You got that electric hand up. I wasn't looking.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to make a clarification on the 6 month. It's no more than 3 times during any 6 month period. So that doesn't allow you to rent it 3 times before June and 3 times after June. So if you started renting it in April, May, and June, that's when the 6 month clock starts. So if you started in April, May, June, July, August, September, you couldn't rent it again until, if you do 3 times within that period till
Mhm.
October.
We can live with that.
Yeah.
I misunderstood the ruling, but we're not doing the rental to make this an investment property. We're just trying to help cover some of our expenses.
Right. And that was, the intent of the board writing the rules was, to discourage, properties around the lake being purchased for, investment purposes only.
Jeff?
Yes, yes, Alex.
I got, I'm just a little confused on the parking, as I know that's a very narrow road there, and I'm trying to just get clarification on what the parking is like. It's hard to see with this map where the parking is going to be.
It's to the right of our property,
On our property.
on our property.
And how many
Do you have
spaces
the
are
map?
there
Do
to
you have the
park?
map? Alex, do you have the map in front of you?
Yes.
Mike, do you have access to calling that up quickly?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Mm.
You want the parking layout?
Yes, the one
Okay.
that took up all the printer ink on my printer with the background there. Thank you. So again, as you look at this, for the commission members, the road itself, you can see Amadon Drive and it coming to a cul-de-sac at the end. This is really, there's like the 2 houses on the point. You've got 33 and 34. Effectively, again, 34 in the lower right-hand side, above that 33, and then 31 and 32 as it continues down toward the mainland, if you will. And the parking area for 34 is this part of 32, the section saying NF Lake Chaffee Association? Or is that a right of way, or is that just part of 32?
That is actually land owned by the association.
Okay, thank you.
I have
So-
a question. Do you have a beach there, waterfront with dockage or anything like that for watercraft?
We have for waterfront, we've got about 168 foot of frontage. Then we have stairs that go into the lake where we have 2 kayaks that we tie up there. And then directly in front of our property, as you look at the face of our property that fronts on the lake, to the left of it, we have other stairs that go down to a floating dock, although it's attached to the wall, it floats. And then we have another permanent dock attached to that. And we have a paddle boat. We used to have a pontoon boat that we attached to the permanent, but we got rid of that last year. And we have a paddle boat that is attached to the floating dock.
Do you expect your renters to bring boats of their own?
No. Part of the rules, we're going to have a whole documentation of the Lake Association ordinances and rules. Our rule will be that they cannot bring a boat onto the property, nor can they use the boat launch. The association has their own specific ordinance that says that anyone using their boat dock or any of the facilities, such as parking at their association building, has to have written permission from the owner or the resident. And we are not going to give anyone permission to use the boat dock or bring in their boats. If they do, I'll be right over there and that boat will be leaving.
And the guests will be leaving.
And when you say boats, that's an overall encompassing paddle boards, kayaks, canoes.
We're not going to let them bring kayaks or anything to the lake. There's been a great concern amongst the association members that if boats have not been cleaned properly, that they would cause pollution and possible contamination of the lake and increased growth of weeds that take over the lake. So we're not going to allow them to bring them. We will provide 2 kayaks and a paddle boat. We'll provide floating devices, et cetera, along with life preservers and things like that.
I think Janet had a question.
Yeah, I was on mute. I kept trying to ask a question. How far is your parking from the lake?
Well, we have pulled our cars up as close as probably 10 or 15 feet. Generally speaking, we get 3 cars in and be 1, 2, 3, probably 20, 25 feet away.
Well, your description here has places for 4 cars. So I was wondering if that was filled up, how far, what the closest car to the lake would be how far away?
I don't have a specific measurement for that. We're only going to allow renters to bring 2 cars onto the property.
Any other questions?
How many
Members.
people will be staying at this during the rental time?
It'd be a maximum of 4 adults and children. We're going to gear our rentals to families. Using Airbnb or Vrbo, we can know who's coming. And after the rental, at least on Airbnb, I'm told, from what I've read about Airbnb's rules, that after somebody has booked the reservation, you can actually ask them for a picture of those who are going to be in the property. And I intend to go out and meet the renters and make certain that those who are renting are actually those who are renting and not somebody renting and giving the permission for someone else to come onto the property. In addition to that, I've been doing research and I've found out that there are monitoring devices that can be put in place that are either connected to the internet and allow you to monitor the cell phones in the property and also the noise level in and outside of the property. And there's a service fee that you can pay a company and they'll do that. And I think that's the only way to go. We have a tremendous investment in this property, so we have no intention of allowing someone to rent the property for a period of time and start to throw parties. And that's one of the restrictions. We'll have no parties, no bonfires, just a good place for families to go and have a good time.
Anything else from the commission? Okay, I open it up to the general public. I know Mr. Sherman had spoken that he wanted to have a say. Mr. Sherman, are you available?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it. And first and foremost, Bob and I have been friends for a long time, so this is, none of this is against Bob. This is more about the concept, and some of this thinking has been influenced by the 3 rental per 6 months period. That's more acceptable than the fear of, every week, new rentals, new people. But I do still carry concerns because this is a association road, a narrow road that you cannot fit 2 cars side by side on most of it. And having non-resident traffic on there is a risk, and it's a risk that nobody's had an accident that we know of, or anybody's willing to claim. But it only takes one to have some tragic event. So that's a first concern. Second concern, and this is more of a question for the board, actually. Should Bob be given his application is permitted? I guess that's the right way to put it. Bob's been trying to sell his house over the most of this last summer. Should he get permission to have these short-term rentals? And the question to me is, does that permission follow Bob and Sue, or does it stay with the property? Because that might be an appealing reason for an investor to buy the property. I don't know quite who to ask that of, but I assume it's the board.
Well, yes, you can ask that question of the board. Again, the permit itself is not in perpetuity. I mean, the first year is just that, is a first year permit. After that, after review of compliance with all regulations and all, then the next would be for a 2-year permit. I'm going to, and I always put him on the spot like this. Mike, we don't know of anything that limits or in our regs what would require us to have someone resubmit for such a permit with a new owner?
Right, yeah, so the application is for the property, but because this application requires the renewal, even if somebody purchased the property, they would still fall into the same schedule of requiring the submissions to come back to the board. And if the person who purchased the property didn't meet the criteria or wasn't operating within the parameters of the existing permit, then it would be grounds for the commission to not approve the subsequent renewal.
So what I just heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if Bob is given approval, Bob could turn around tomorrow and sell the house, and someone would have the approval for the upcoming year.
But correct, but they would only have the ability to operate under the conditions of this permit. So all the guidance that he's providing to the board during this public hearing is the information which they will use to make their decision. He cannot then sell the property to some other person and have that person then operate it based upon another set of criteria. The only thing that would change is the owner of the property. The parameters by which the permit would need to be conducted would be based upon the regulations and the application information that Mr. Carvo is currently providing.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I understand that, because that adds to my troubled brain. I trust Bob.
Can I speak to that?
Yep.
As I read your regulations on special permit applications, you can actually put restrictions. Am I correct?
Correct.
And I would have no problem with the board putting a restriction on it that if I were to sell the property, that the special permit for short-term rental would not pass with the transfer of the property.
Can that be done? I mean,
As a special requirement of the special permit, yes, we can have that, we can put that requirement on there.
Other than the concerns of non-resident traffic and that particular item, that's all I had to contribute at this point.
If I can ask a question of you, Mr. Chairman, when you say the concern of non-resident traffic, is your concern volume, or is your concern that someone will not follow the rules of the road?
My concern is on a, not every day, but many days. I live 2 doors up from Bob, to be honest with you. Actually, the 3rd house up from Bob. And the way Amadon Road is laid out, there's a bit of a hill. And as many people come over that hill, they come flying down the road. And if, the residents folks, we all know, and so we slow down and we aren't endangering things or people or whatever. But folks that don't live in the area who are coming to visit, and I would expect they're going to be coming and going for groceries or of whatever they're doing in the neighborhood. So that's when I say non-resident. I have had several discussions with some of the, like, for example, FedEx trucks or UPS trucks. They fly down the road, and our speed limit is very low by the association rules, but that doesn't seem to matter to some people because they come over that hill and they just seem to gain more speed. I don't know where they think they're going because the road ends fairly quickly after that. But so it's, and I understand Bob's gonna educate the renters and all that kind of good stuff. But when they're behind the wheel and driving, as non-residents, it's a new road to them. So it's not a volume thing. I really don't expect the volume to be that significant. But it's more of a safety issue because of the scenario of the road itself.
Okay, thank you
Yes.
for clarifying.
Can
Yep.
I speak to that as well?
Sure, Bob, go ahead.
We've lived there for 19, almost 20 years. We've had people who have come to our property, spend several days with us. And there's never been an issue with people speeding or what have you, or I've never seen an accident on Amadon. Prior to anyone leasing the property, we're going to provide them with the ordinances before they even arrive to the property. I will meet them the day they arrive. I'll make them aware of the 15-mile-per-hour speed limit. And as I said, we have Kay Warren and Dick Dewey living close proximity. If there is a problem, they will call me immediately, and I'll come right out and nip that one in the bud. And I can understand Ralph's concern about it, but I think the history of the road speaks for itself. It's a dead-end street, and a lot of people coming up the road think they can turn right and get to the other side of the lake, which they don't. So then they come and turn around. Rather than speeding, we've had more concern about people coming in and turning around who don't know the area as well. So
Is it posted at 15, or is that just a general rule for the area?
it is not posted.
It is not posted.
And
Thank
I
you.
have, I have suggested on several occasions that the board, I was on the board and also president going back a few years ago. And in this past year, I've recommended to the board on several occasions, they actually post speed limits. I've heard comments about, gee, that's a great idea, but they haven't done it. And I suggest to Ralph that he also be a voice asking for that.
Well, I've actually posted signage in the last year at Kay's request because of concern about speeding people. So,
Ralph has a sign that says slow down in front of his house.
well, at the beginning of the road, it's also flagged as a dead end street. So,
Right, now it is.
Yeah.
And some people don't read it because I see people still come in.
yeah, no, that, yeah, the signage is always a nice thought, but these days people don't read stuff, unfortunately. So.
Okay, and we did receive your letter, Mr. and Mrs. Sherman, so thank you very much for your input. Anyone else from the public wishing to be heard?
Yes, this is Tracy Smith. I live at 33 Amadon.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Smith.
I share the point with Mr. Corvo. And I just feel this is not a good idea. To get back to traveling or traversing the road, it's narrow, not lit. And traveling it, people don't know it. So they travel it too quickly. People along the road own land on both sides of the road and go across it frequently. My personal concerns, and I think people should think about this, because sometimes you might say, well, what's so bad about having an Airbnb? But when you think about it, if it's going to be right next door to you, you think twice about it. You go, well, I wouldn't mind it, but not next to me. So it's next to me. I have a primary residence here. I have my family here. And if I have people frequenting here that I do not know, I am going to feel completely unsafe. I feel it's risky. There's increased risk for crime, theft, and I do not want to police the situation. I have enough trouble with people driving down this road and hearing complaints from neighbors about people driving, turning around. I've had police come to my house because other people have driven or turned around and other neighbors are complaining about it. It is not an easy place. It is difficult. The neighbors are not easy about it. So it's my concerns are safety. I'm going to feel completely unsafe. It's going to be possible noise, disruption, and I have my primary residence here. It's not seasonal. And I've spoken to Mr. D'Amato about this and expressed my concerns, and I agree with Mr. Sherman. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other comments or questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do. It just took me a minute to unmute.
Okay, go right ahead, Mr. Krieger.
I spoke at length last time. My concerns are the same, so I'm not going to reiterate those. I appreciate that the regulations were set up to discourage purchase of houses for investment purposes, and my general concern, which I mentioned last time, is about a proliferation of rental properties around the lake and how that hollows out the community. So my question to the board is, the commission is there a mechanism for monitoring that people are keeping to 3 rentals within a 6-month period? And if not, is that something you would take up as a commission? Because again, my concern is not especially just about Bob. He's been a trusted member of the community for a long time, but that once there's an establishment of Airbnb and VRBOs around the lake, that people will buy in, and is there going to be a mechanism for actually monitoring that from the from the commission's point or from the town's point. And again, if not, if you could take that up at a future meeting.
In general, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, in general, we are not a policing body. We will react to a complaint from a resident, town resident, a budding neighbor, person down the road that is affected by what they feel is something not proper. So we will respond to a complaint. Our zoning enforcement officer will do that. And we have, the courts and things like that to go through. But we are not a policing body here. As you know, we don't have a constable. We don't have the resident state trooper or anything like that. But what we do have is the ability to respond to complaints as sent to us from any of the surrounding residents or anyone who feels that something is not properly being followed by the regulations. And then it would be investigated.
The only thing that I would add is that the applicant would come back for a renewal and it would be on them to demonstrate that they were in compliance. So if there were issues with rental frequency during year one, and they came back for a renewal to continue, the commission could ask for any type of information. I would imagine the applicant could get some documentation from the website or agency that they went through to sort of certify whether it be a calendar or the contracts or whatever. But if the commission has concerns with that, they would need to make the commission happy that they operated in compliance with year one. And if the commission was not satisfied, that they then would not be obligated to renew the permit.
That's as we get into
You
this
mean-
again,
You mean if like a
I'm sorry, go
neighbor,
ahead.
if a neighbor, when you're saying if there were issues, you mean if someone in the community made a complaint, is that correct?
Right. I mean, just as with anything else that we tend to deal with, whether it's I'm just trying to think, someone building, someone putting a driveway in appropriately, someone building a
Annexed
second house
containers.
on a single dwelling lot, anything like that that's under the zoning regs. We would respond to a complaint and need to do that. We don't go out necessarily policing it ourselves. I guess one of the questions that comes up for me, I'll be right with you, Mark, I'm sorry. One of the things that comes up for me, Mike, is what you were saying is, as we get into this more and more and we need documentation, or we require someone to provide us with that they've met all the rules and regulations when they come back to us, say, for their renewal on their permit. I'm wondering if there is something we can find, and we can look into this to be a well-informed board, is, looking someone up on Airbnb, Verbo, whatever it is, and how many times that property has been rented in the last year. I would think that would be some type of public knowledge or information that can be gained from any of these registering groups.
Jeff,
Yes.
I have looked at Airbnb, and I don't know whether it was on Verbo or Airbnb, but it actually gave the number of rentals during a period of time.
See, okay, so that is available to us as a point of reference when it comes to renewing a permit.
It is, and I want to assure that my neighbors and the board that I'm only 25 minutes away, 30 minutes. If there's any complaints or problem, I will be there in a heartbeat. I own rental property in other locations, not short-term, but long-term rental. And I've done it for decades. And in any property I've ever owned, I have nipped any problems immediately in the bud. It's wrong for a neighbor to have to put up with it. And it's wrong for anybody who rents from us to act in that manner and fashion.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Kerwin.
welcome.
Jeff,
Yes.
this is Kay Warren.
Oh, hi, Kay. Go right ahead.
Hi, I wasn't quite sure. Okay, at the beginning of your meeting of the hearing, you gave my address as 34 Amadon Drive. I'm at 31 Amadon Drive.
I'm sorry if I read that wrong. I'm sorry, Kim.
Yeah, it's okay. I just want to make that correction.
And you're on here on the official butter list, not my error in my statement. So we've got it officially down here. Thank you.
I just want to bring up a couple of points here. I've lived here 46 years this year, going on 47. There's never been a robbery on this road. I've gotten along with all my neighbors through the years, except for a couple. And Bob has been an excellent neighbor. He follows through on what he says. If things are wrong, he tries to right them. And I can't say enough. They've been great neighbors. I have gone to the board. They are supposed to be putting up a speed limit sign on this street because we have people who live here who think this is a racetrack. But it's not. People a lot from out. We do get a lot of traffic down here at the end because a lot of people think this is the road that goes around the lake. They think it's Old Town Road and it's not. And then they get down here and they say, oh, and then they leave. But that's, since Ralph has put that sign up down there, that has stopped a little bit. And
That's the dead end sign that was mentioned before?
yeah, but no, no turnaround.
Oh,
No turnaround because we were getting great big UPS trucks down here. I had a tractor trailer one time to come down to deliver my pellet stove. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and we couldn't have that either because we have low hanging wires here. But I just wanted to tell people, don't be afraid to issue this permit because he will be a good landlord. And like he said, I'm in communication with them all the time. And if something's wrong, he doesn't mind having me tell him or Dick. And he tries to correct it, and he will correct it. And if I thought there was any danger in letting him have this, I would be saying just the opposite. So I just keep in mind that let's let them try it and see what happens. I'm all
Okay.
for it.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Kay.
And I think that's all I got to say. And good night, everyone.
Okay, good night. Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to make a statement? Mark, did you have a statement to say? I'm sorry, I kind of talked over you a little while ago.
No, I was just reiterating your concern, your statements that, the town, just as an example, if someone has a Connex container, we rely on, neighbors and, people passing by to notify the board of violations. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, hearing no other statements from the public at this point, we're going to bring the public hearing for PZ 223 and the special permit for 34 Amadon to a close. I want to thank everyone for their time and their input. We do have a letter from the Lake Chaffee Improvement Association that would be discussed at the meeting itself when we have our discussion from Martin Connors, President and Board of Directors, Lake Chaffee Improvement Association. So that is part of the public record as provided by Mike. It's a bit lengthy, but we will bring it up and discuss it at our meeting also. So at this point, so that hearing is closed. We will now open up PZ 22-8, special permit per section 317D for a short-term rental at 21 Lakeside Drive. Owner applicant is R&M Holdings LLC, according to the application. So, bear with me a second. Let me grab my notes here. Here we go. Okay, so we have received this application. And again, a proposed short-term rental. Just going through it here. All fees received. I have a question here about the notification of the Wind and Water Works, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I don't know if R&M Holdings wishes to discuss it first, or Mr. and Mrs. Campbell wish to discuss their application.
Well, I'm R&M Holdings and my name is Robert Campbell, my wife.
Oh,
Judy.
okay.
So I'm happy to just.
You are one and the same.
start
Go
off
right
here.
ahead, please.
All right. Well, as I was saying, I'm here, Robert Campbell, and my wife Judy is here this evening. She's unable to join us because she's got a pretty bad head cold this evening. We purchased the 21 Lakeside property on December 23rd of 2020. Guess you could say it was kind of a Christmas gift to ourselves. Since that time, we obtained all the wetland zoning necessary building permits to demolition the existing home and construct a new home there that received its CO this September. Judy and I have been looking at properties since about 2015 when Judy's nephew came to visit her mother. They had rented a property at 97 Lakeside Drive during their stay. It was owned by Lisa Davis and her husband at that time. We kind of visiting up there when they were here, and we kind of thought it would really be nice to own a property up at Ashford Lake someday. We had made offers on a couple properties over the years there, and this was the one we ended up with. Kind of as my wife and I planned to occupy this house, for 6 months or more of the year, we thought it might be nice that others enjoy this Ashford Lake house every now and then. And maybe they'll have dreams of owning their own house at a lake one day. Construction process, my wife and I became very familiar with the planning and zoning regulations because we were building a new home at the time, and we saw the information that was recently instituted for the short-term rental. And that's kind of why we're here this evening. You'll see our engineering firm is here, Gardner Peterson. They worked with us on the application. Lisa Day Lewis is also here, who also owns the Tolland Inn now and is listed as an Airbnb superhost, and she's going to help us manage and screen our short-term rental guests. To our guests, they won't be allowed to bring their own boats and kayaks to the property. We don't want them to bring invasive species into the lake. Our guest handbook will also reflect this, along with a section on disruptive behavior. We also plan on using sound monitoring devices to ensure our guests respect our neighbors. If you've got any questions for me, I'd obviously be more than happy to answer them. And both Mark Peterson and Lisa Day Lewis are in at this meeting also, and would be more than happy to answer questions you might have to them. So I guess at that time, at this time, I'm happy to listen to any questions the board might have for me.
Go downstairs. Go downstairs.
Yeah.
Yes, Janet.
Bob, so you're living here more than 6 months of the year, so this is your primary residence?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
And do you have an expectation of how frequently you'd be renting?
Well, we can only rent according to the regulations, which is 3 times in the 6-month period. So
right.
So it's a seldom rental window, but we understand that, and we understand the regulations, as we have with every other zoning regulation we've read during the course of construction.
And I'm looking at the site plan here. I see you're proposing a privacy fence. Addition of a privacy
Eventually,
fence.
yes, we're gonna be putting a privacy fence up. We abut
Yep.
the beach side. And also for our neighbor, Erica, who lives on the other side of us at 17 Lakeside Drive.
Okay. And it has no bearing on your application. It's just I was confirming.
I understand that when I asked Gardner Peterson to do the survey, I wanted to actually have them for this application. I asked them to put the privacy fence in so I could double this page as a privacy fence application later on that I'll be putting into the building department.
Any other questions of the commission? Okay, we'll open it up to any of the attendees, public, open to the public, if you have a comment regarding the 21 Lakeside application. Mr. Campbell, could you tell me about I've seen some of the pictures. Could you tell me about the home itself, the size of the home and what your expectation is for renting?
Our expectation is to rent for 4 adults and 1 child. The size of the home, as you can see from the plans, is it's a little bit over 1,700 square feet, I believe it is. I believe you have plans for the 1st and 2nd floor there.
Yes.
In your packet.
Yes.
Gives you the dimensions of the rooms and the sizes, and you also have, I believe, a complete set of photographs of those rooms. Primarily listed except for interior closets and things like that, as was requested in the application for permit by when reading through the regulations.
How many bedrooms?
2 bedrooms.
2 bedroom.
As shown on the plan.
There we go.
And-
First floor, on the 1st floor area. Now I see it.
Yep.
2 bedroom, 2 bath.
The sanitation department was very concerned about our office area and stuff to make sure on the 2nd floor, to make sure that it was not able to be used as a bedroom. Therefore, it has a very large opening going into it. So it's basically open space into the main living area.
And I know in the application, you included a notification of the Wyndham Waterworks within the watershed area, which is probably, I don't know, I haven't seen it before. It's a step too far, but it's impressive. Regarding the.
It's actually required in your application that it needs to be put in there. That's why Gardner Peterson included it.
For a Wyndham Waterworks or the Eastern Highlands Health District?
Wyndham Waterworks, I believe Mark can answer to that.
Yeah, Mark Peterson, Gardner and Peterson Associates. We had received Eastern Highlands approval during the construction of the home. But it's my understanding that Wyndham Waterworks would be notified for any application, whether it's a wetland application or a zoning application. So we've done that. It's typical, you only get a response unless they have a concern. I did not hear anything, but I've included that application in the packet.
Okay. And was that the existing septic system with the new home or a new septic system?
No,
or-
there is a new system, test holes overseen by Eastern Highlands Health District, new design plan that was approved, and a new system installed with the home.
Okay. And the existing well.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I did not see anything submitted from in abutters in support or in a negative response to the application at this point. Unless I missed anything. Mike, do you know of any?
I don't have anything separate, no.
Nothing that you sent out. Okay, that's good. Again, anything from the commission? Anything from the public? Okay, very good. We will then close this hearing, PZ 228, for the special permit for 21 Lakeside Drive. Thank you for your input. Thank you for attending on those two items, that hearing there. We will move on to opening up a public hearing concerning the potential opting out of the provisions of Public Act 21-29 pertaining to the accessory dwelling units as it pertains to affordable housing in Connecticut. We'll find in my notes on that. Here we go. Okay, so Mike had mentioned this to us at the last meeting regarding the Public Act 21-29, which basically, in a nutshell, permits accessory apartments on land with a single-family home without a public hearing or any type of special permit, kind of as a right. I think that's right, Michael, isn't it?
Correct, yep.
Okay. And what happens is that there are, a number of requirements and limitations when it comes to the state requirement for us adopting this public act. We have the ability to opt out. We need to do it by December 31st of this year, prior to 2023, in order to, I guess it would be maintain some control. There's a number of towns around the state that have opted out of this, and it really has to do with maintaining a modicum of control when it comes to allowing for accessory dwelling units on lots. And I mean, there are, some of the things from the state, it can be up to 1,000 square feet, requiring to have the same setbacks. And again, if we wanted to cap the size of some of these, if we wanted to deal with this in our own affordable housing plan, this way we're not limited or required to go by the state's requirements. So that's kind of the opt-out on this too. It's not to get out of anything. It's just to maintain control on a local basis when it comes to the accessory dwelling units. And this was an option that was brought up well at the adoption of the Public Act 21-29. It seems to be something that is kind of the right thing to do. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have no problem with opting out. I just want to I am concerned that we make it easy for people to apply, or whatever the process is, to to put in accessory dwelling units, considering the problems people have with affordability these days.
Can I jump in really quick?
Go right ahead, Mike.
So the other thing that is worth mentioning, and is probably more what pushed me to recommend this, is that while it requires you to put on sort of multiple tinfoil hats, if you will, there is some concern amongst the legal community that because towns cannot opt out after January 1, if the criteria within the statute as it sits today were to be modified after January 1, someone could make the argument that even though the actual language has changed, your ability to opt out has gone away. So even if the commission intends to follow suit with everything listed in the act regarding accessory dwelling units. Just by opting out, we put ourselves in a position where current or future state language will not supersede whatever it is that we find to be appropriate. So this is really just a CYA, if anything else. This doesn't prevent us from adopting regs which are equally as easy to use or flexible or more flexible than the Act. It just covers us so they can't make those changes after January 1.
Thank you for explaining that.
Comments from the commission? And remember, we're in a public hearing right now. We're not in a meeting to have a discussion or full discussion or motions or anything like that. This is simply a public hearing. Doug.
So Jeff, I'm trying to understand without really digging through all 28 pages of this public act.
You mean this one right here?
Yeah, I just had it up on my other screen here. What exactly is going on? It's saying that unless we define something differently, an accessory structure can be can automatically be housing.
Do you want me to
That
read
doesn't
the
have to go
bullet?
through any type of local town zoning regulations, period?
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike. You have more background. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, there's a bunch of summaries, and so I can read the bullet points that pertain to the PZC stuff. So if the commission does not opt out on January 1st, the state guidelines will sort of supersede the town's current regulations, because the regulations we have written now are not compliant with the Act. So the Act basically says that you cannot require an accessory dwelling unit be occupied by the homeowner or relatives of the occupant. The Act says you cannot require a public hearing or special permit to approve an accessory dwelling unit. You can't require that they correct some nonconformity on the property or require sprinklers unless otherwise required by fire code. You can't require that they have an exterior door or be connected to the main house. You can't require that they have a minimum size. So our regs currently say shall be at least 500 square feet, for example. And you cannot have more restrictive setback or coverage requirements if there's an accessory dwelling unit. We can't require them to be affordable. We can prohibit them from being used as short-term rentals. And we cannot require they be served by separate utilities or septic systems, et cetera. So, the easiest one is our current regulations say shall be no less than 500 square feet and shall contain no more than one bedroom, blah, blah, blah. So on January 1, if we do not opt out, that criteria within our regulations is superseded by the Act.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that description.
I can share, I have that sort of on a one pager. I can send that out from some legislative stuff that I got at the end of the session if you guys want to read it, but.
That may be helpful if we do choose to move forward in terms of opting out and then going and back next year or some period of time in the future and work on some changes to our regulations.
It's probably worth noting that if the PZC chooses to opt out, the Board of Selectmen also has to opt out. So if this board chooses to do so, then that recommendation will go to the Board of Selectmen, and they have to also affirmatively opt out at a 2/3 majority, or it's null.
Both boards at 2/3, correct?
Correct.
Plus, it gives us more time to review, as Mike was, has already laid out a couple of our regs that don't comply with that. It gives us, and I think Doug was alluding to that too, it gives us more time to become compliant with what the state has deemed appropriate for affordable housing and putting in the accessory dwelling units and such too. But we can do it on our time. We're not required by some of these, our regs are not in violation of the requirements if we do not opt out of this. Or they will be if we do not opt out. So, thank you. Any discussion from the public on this? Yes, Ms. Trotta.
Good evening, Carolyn Trotta. I live at 22 Lakeside Drive. I am a commercial real estate broker, and this has come up in meetings that I've had out in Killingly. They've been very proactive in writing their own regulations and opting out already. And I'm glad to see that Ashford is considering it. I would strongly agree that we should opt out, and at our time, later on, put together the regs that work for our community, because the state will, whatever they mandate, and they will change them, and they will push it out to us, and we won't have any other recourse. So, yeah, I would strongly agree with opting out.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your input. Anyone else?
Yes, I have my hand raised if I can speak.
I'm
for a
sorry.
second.
Yes, your electronic hand. Go right ahead.
Apologies on that. Yes, I do want to touch upon this quickly, and I called ahead to make sure I could speak. But yes, my name is Alan Cavagnaro. I reside in South Windsor, actually. I wanted to speak on this for a second. I actually serve on my own town's, South Windsor's Planning and Zoning Commission, and so we've dealt with this, and I just wanted to come out and speak about this tonight. So essentially, in South Windsor as well, we voted unanimously, both in town council and planning and zoning, to opt out of this. So my opinion really on 2129, I do think it's, a great thing, but at the same time, the reason why we all voted unanimously for it was we already had, plans in the works for ADUs. We already had our own regulations written. We wanted to take it very seriously. And just like the person before said, with ADUs as well, that gives the towns more control with it. But at the same time, I'm speaking on this tonight because ADUs have been a proven solution or one of the solutions for cheaper living and affordable housing in Connecticut. They've really allowed homeowners either to open it up. It doesn't affect the character by any means. If anyone is concerned about character, they're, like I said, very cheap to build. I'm really just speaking on this tonight because, I think it's important that many towns take into consideration for accessory dwelling units. I know other towns have talked about, rescinding the parking requirements too. I don't see that you guys have done that yet. But in terms of ADUs, I just wanted to comment and, keep in mind that it's very important to be at least proactive on it. Connecticut lacks 87,000 affordable units. In South Windsor, I can't, speak on behalf of the commission. I'm just representing myself. But I just like talking in these town meetings about, affordable housing and ADUs. So really that's all I came to talk about, essentially, just hoping you guys have a plan to move forward for ADUs, even though it's sort of a local plan. I just want to make sure that's in place for you guys. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Public or commission? Okay.
Yeah, Jeff, I
Yes,
had
Richard.
tried to unmute before and I didn't get it done in time, but I'm all in favor of us opting out. And I think I'd expressed this back at least 3 or 4 months ago. By opting out, it gives us the option of crafting things ourselves as opposed to having one size fits all given to us by the state. So I'm very much in support of what has been brought up by South Windsor and the Realtor and others here tonight.
Thank you, Dick. Yes, Ms. Trotta.
One more thing, the town of Killingly is more than happy to sit down with any town in Connecticut to share their regs and to explain their reasoning. They're very happy to do that. So it's a good starting point.
Thank you. Okay, one more time. Anything else regarding from the commission members or from the general public regarding the potential opting out of Public Act 2129 regarding accessory dwelling units? Hearing nothing, I will close that public hearing. And that brings us to the end of our public hearing section. Now is unfinished business for Westford Hill Road, 154 Westford Hill Road. I would ask that someone make a motion for us to go into executive session to discuss this.
So moved.
Richard
Second.
moves. Dan,
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Just because of the number of people that we have to juggle, can we do this at the end so that it's a little bit easier with the number of members of the public?
What's the matter? You don't feeling nimble tonight?
I mean,
kidding.
I
Just
am,
kidding.
but you know, I just don't want to lose
kidding.
anybody.
Okay, let's we won't be following through on that motion at this point. The chair chooses not to accept that motion, but he is seeking a motion to change the agenda and move our unfinished business to probably just before the zoning, after new business, and then going on to new business. So do I have a motion to move our unfinished business to down on the agenda?
Janet, I move that we move unfinished business.
Okay, Janet and Jeff, do you want a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So that was Janet with the motion and Jeff Schillinger with the second on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay, so we will move on to the new business for discussion. First is the PZ-22-3 special permit for section 300, excuse me, -17D for a short-term rental on 34 Amadon Drive, owner applicant R. Corvo. So this is for the commission's discussion. What are your thoughts? What are your what's your input regarding the 34 Amadon application?
This is Dick. It seems like we have discussed this thing up one side, back the other side, and ad nauseum. I didn't realize when we put forth the short-term rental and the special permits that we would be taking up as much of the time with planning and zoning on these matters as we seem to be.
I made a motion, you didn't hear me.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, Jerry?
I said I made a motion earlier and you didn't hear me, or I guess I was muted.
What was your motion? We just came out of hearing, so we wouldn't be doing motions
No.
anyways.
I was making a motion to go to executive session and then,
Oh, okay.
but then you changed it, but apparently you couldn't hear me.
Oh, okay. I can hear you now.
Okay, hear you now. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Janet? Yeah, hi. I have some concerns about this property. First of all, it's not their primary residence, and while I appreciate all the effort and thought they put into planning how to safely do a rental, short-term rentals, I think it's bad precedence for us to approve it when we do require that it be the primary residence of the homeowner. I'm also concerned about the closeness to the neighbors. One abutter is opposed to it. And if we approve it again, we're setting a precedence, and new owners might not be as careful about who they rent to. And even if you still have to renew your permit, but you've still got a year of people dealing with problems. The other issue is the parking. He's parking on the lawn, which is close to the lake. And a lot of car traffic on grass can degrade the lawn and possibly cause silt to go into the lake. Especially like last year when we had the drought and all our lawns were pretty crunchy. I wouldn't want a lot of traffic on the lawn. So those are my concerns. I don't think I could vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, I come back to the point is every time someone wants to do a short-term rental, are we going to have a extensive discussion within planning and zoning of all the attributes one way or the other of that? When we put forth the section in the land use regulations, it wasn't my impression that this would become a major subject for the Planning and Zoning Commission to be spending their time with.
Well,
What's your point, Dick? Do you want us to go home?
No,
Yeah,
it just seems that this should be handled, that there should be more, either we did not write it correctly, or or this should be something that should be able to be handled more administratively or to some set of guidelines, rather than having extensive detailed discussions for everyone.
Well, it does require a special permit, thus it requires a
Right.
hearing for each.
correct.
And every-
And I think that's appropriate, given each application we've received so far has its own unique entities. For example, this location is in a very, very tight proximity with its adjacent properties. And the entrance and exit is one way, which is a very difficult means of egress. So I think it's appropriate that it's a special permit. It requires us to discuss this. Now, what we should be thinking as we're going through each one of these is, are there modifications we may want to make to the regulations moving forward in light of some of the things that have come up with each application so far? I'm
Yeah,
not saying we need to do that right now, but that's something we should be thinking about as we're going through these discussions.
Yeah, Doug, that was my point exactly, is that, in some respects, it sounds like that some of the people in and around, let's take Lake Chaffee, for instance, that they're really not that much in favor of having short-term rentals. Maybe it might be better handled with a deed restriction on the properties at Lake Chaffee, so it gets it out of the planning and zoning area.
Dick, the both lake boards are working on restrict or rules, or their own rules and regulations for short-term rentals. But it's a work in process, and as you know, it takes some time.
Right.
And that's where I want to recommend, that's why I want to commend both Mark and Janet for their efforts in putting together these short-term rental information. I think you were appropriately well ahead of the game, to the point where we've actually had the lake associations ask us to and letters to put a moratorium on approval of these, only because they haven't put together regs and requirements of their groups, Whereas, again, you folks had the foresight to identify it as an active situation and something that needed to be dealt with for planning and zoning. And you looked at it from, I think, a very appropriate manner of limitation and trying to protect the rights of those people in and around the lake while still protecting the rights of those people who own the property itself. So again, I commend you on your efforts on that. And that's the hand we're dealt right now. These are the rules and regulations that we have to deal with, and we're having applicants apply through those. Regarding the situation with primary residence, and whether it was, I don't think it's so much a lack of a definition. I think, and everyone, please correct me if I'm wrong, if linguistically I'm off on this, but when it comes to a short-term rental unhosted, in our definitions, we have a residential dwelling not occupied by the owner of record at the time of the rental and is represented by a designated agent within 2 hours of the rental property. Well, couldn't that be the owner of record being the agent?
Yeah. If they're within 2 hours. I would
Yes,
see why not.
correct.
Yes,
So-
but Jeff,
Yeah, go ahead.
Number 3, D3 in the regs says if a short-term rental occurs in an RA zone, or if it occurs in any other district on a lot containing only one unit dwelling, and no additional dwelling units or other non-residential uses, then the property must be the primary residence of the owner. So it's the primary residence of the owner, but they're not living there at the time of the rental. So it's unhosted because the owner isn't on the premises at the time it's rented, but they're still the primary. It's still their primary residence.
Still their primary residence. Okay. That makes sense when you apply that.
So you have to look at
from that
both the definitions and the regulations to figure that out.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Janet, I have a question for you, because you seem to be pretty familiar with the Lake District rules and regulations. What type of enforcement action can these associations take against somebody that violates their rules?
Well, I think, I can't speak for Lake Chaffee, but I did sit in on the Ashford Lake Board discussion, and that has come up. It's as with, our Planning and Zoning Commission, the lakes don't have enforcement officers. So that is something that they're trying to figure out how to deal with.
Okay,
And to
because
that
my
end-
next question would be, if they did have the ability to enforce the regulations, maybe, we should look towards letting them do that and take care of some of these problems within the Lake Districts, because this seems to be where we're going to have the most of these permit requests.
I think once the lake districts come up with their regulations, that may help us, they may be stricter than the planning and zoning. They may not, but they may,
Well,
might
they
make
will,
it
they will
easier
have,
for us.
they will have other requirements above and beyond what planning and zoning can put into place and what's under our jurisdiction.
Right.
Our purview. I can tell you that from the Lake Chaffee Improvement Association letter that we received on November 15th from Mr. Connors, and that is available from the material that Mike provided to us. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet regarding Lake Chaffee was presently the Lake Chaffee Improvement Association lacks financial resources to support robust communication and enforcement of our ordinances and bylaws. This in turn leads to reduced compliance, particularly among visitors who have not been alerted regarding the danger of increased damage to the lake, the environment, and the safety and enjoyment of all. increasing the number of short-term visitors can only worsen the situation. My point on that was they too also say that they don't have the resources to police their ordinances and such too. But again, I don't think it's a matter of us letting them do it. I think it's a matter of them needing to impose this and follow through on it if they're going to be making these recommendations more stringent. Any other input regarding 34 Amadon?
Jeff, this is Doug. I got a couple comments.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Janet on concerns about parking. Now, while the application does say 3 cars, it was stated in the public hearing up to 2 cars. If this commission was to approve the application, perhaps maybe we want to approve it with a restriction on the number of vehicles. In concert with that, if we were to approve it, I do like the concept of approving it only in support, only consistent with the current owner, and if the ownership does change, it would require a new application. Again, that is if the commission decides to approve it tonight. I think that might consider some of the comments that we've heard. Now, there's other comments that I haven't thought through on how to address, such as the adjacent abutter that lives full-time and is concerned. And the comments from the written application, the written letter from the board of directors. I guess relative to one last point, Jeff, relative to the water quality, it was stated in the public hearing that the applicant would not allow any type of watercraft from the outside, if you will. It would just be whatever that applicant owns and keeps on site.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else's input regarding 34? Yeah, I guess on my side of it, in agreeing with Janet's input, that first and foremost requirement of what was it? Whoops, where'd it go here? D.
D3.
D3, thank you. That you know, without the primary residence, then we are, as she said, setting a precedent for not following our own regs at this point. Should you know, and again, these are kind of a living document. I mean, if someone wishes to make a request for change to our regs and how they are written, I think, you know, we would take in that information. But as we get to know what entails with the short-term rental and the owner property and what the intent is and all that too, but hopefully that would come in conjunction with what the lake associations come up as requirements also for the future. So and that's all on my statement. Anyone else? And if there's no other discussion, is there a potential motion on the floor for this application?
I'll move that we deny the application for the reasons that have been stated.
And before we get into, thank you, Janet, we'll finish off with your motion. Before we get into seconding and voting, potentially voting on a, I want to remind anyone that is on the board, that on the commission, if you are a member of one of the Lake Association boards, or have any form of responsibility toward those groups, I would highly recommend that you recuse yourself from a vote. It would be entirely inappropriate for one to vote on this being in that position. So I'm just going to state that out there. Do I have a second on Janet's motion?
Can I ask a
to
question of
deny the request?
clarification, Jeff?
Yes.
In our previous meeting last month, when we approved the short-term rental, were those homeowners, did they declare that that was their primary residence, or have we already set a precedent?
I think they said it was their primary residence.
Yes, they said
I'm
it
trying
was
to
the
recall.
primary residence.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I was actually trying to look that up myself. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Jeff,
So I have a motion on the floor to deny this request.
Yeah, Jeff, in your comment you just made, doesn't that disqualify Janet from making the motion?
She is not on a board for
But
the
she's-
Lake
but she-
Association.
But she's an owner.
Not at Lake Chafee.
No, okay.
Okay, so as I said, I have a motion on the floor for denying this request for
I'll
a
second it.
short-term rental. Alex seconds the motion. All those in favor, let's see, how do you do this positively? All those in support of the motion, say aye to deny the application.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Jeff, this is Dick. I abstain.
Dick abstains.
And Jerry Dufresne, I will have to abstain
Okay,
because
thank you.
I'm on the board of directors for Lake Chafee.
Thank you, Jerry. Abstain. So, and I heard one opposed. So that would make it, let's say 9 minus 2 is 7 and 6 in favor, 1 opposed. So the application is denied. You capture that, Valerie?
No, I only have that Dufresne abstained because he's on the board, that Richard Williams abstained.
Yep.
Or didn't want to vote. And I only have the 2 people voted, Janet Bellamy and Alex Castillo.
No, Janet put the motion in and Alex seconded the motion. And then the vote was 6 for approving the motion and 1 from Jeff Schillinger for voting against approving the motion.
So that means that Nord and Jenny and Schnubel voted for it. I think we should have the names of who voted to approve the motion.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Uh,
So that was Janet
Jeff, all we just raise
Bellamy.
our hands.
yeah, everyone just raise your hand and we'll let you know. Approval of the
Okay,
motion.
Schnubel. Okay, Castillo, Jeremy, Nord. Okay, I got everybody.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next piece of new business. The special permit PZ 22-8 for 21 Lakeside Drive, short-term rental. Any discussion there? We do know that was primary residence. In setting a precedent, should the board choose to approve, I agree with Doug about having the restrictions on the approval of or however we would word it. What works best, Mike? Would it be something along the lines of we require resubmission or reapplication of the special permit for a new owner?
So to address sort of the requirements of how we handle special permits, it would be something along the lines of the applicant or property owner will, by acceptance of this permit, the applicant or property owner hereby acknowledges that following transfer of the property to another party, a willful termination of the special permit or something like that.
Ooh, listen to that. I like that.
Well,
that's
so the key
assuming.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The key with special permits are that they need to be willfully terminated because you have to consider the intent of the property owner. So if you take into consideration that the property were to be transferred, it would have to be a willful termination of the permit. And so the applicant could, in theory, appeal your approval if they didn't like that condition, or when they came back next year, ask for it to be modified because it would be a new permit.
Yeah.
But we would want to include the willful termination of the permit.
Okay. All right. And again, that's potential. That's because we haven't come to an agreement on the application itself. Feedback from anyone, input.
Well, I agree with adding that to the permit.
So it's a new construction. It has primary residence. It has an appropriate driveway. It had no abutters speaking against it.
Yeah, Jeff, the driveway looks like it could probably fit 2 vehicles. 27 feet wide, 18 feet deep. 3 might be tight. Just food for thought. I'm just looking at the drawings.
Yeah. Well,
7, 14, maybe 3 wide.
yeah, I'm thinking about my garage with it's 24 with
Yeah, your typical garage door is 8 by 7, I think.
yeah.
I hope I didn't screw that one up.
No, so 8, 8, and 8, 9, 9, and 9, 27 with no walls, just parking spots, not a garage. It probably
8
fits.
by
It's
7
it's
tall.
a little tight, but it fits 3.
Yeah. Yep. So So relative to what Mike just said about willful termination, Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
I know we're not in the public hearing anymore. Can we ask the applicant if they'd be amenable to that? Should we choose to move forward,
Why do you have
or is
to-
that out of process?
I'm going to defer to my CEO.
You probably shouldn't.
I could speak to that if you like, quickly. As the applicant. If the board wishes.
I mean, it's not new information, so I would say if the applicant has a concern, then I would have him just say yes or no and leave it at that, but it's no new information, which is what the public hearing is for.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have a concern because the application is applied by me. A new owner would be a new owner and would have to be a new application. That's the way I understand this application when I read it. And I'm sure my legal counsel would do the same.
So you're stating that as is your interpretation of that? I'm asking questions. I probably shouldn't be during this time, but who cares? Go ahead.
I didn't mean to put you in this predicament, Jeff. I apologize.
No, that's fine. I'd rather have the information, and it's public knowledge and it's all out in the open here. So I guess the question becomes, your interpretation of as the regs are written is that a new permit would be required, as opposed to us putting the restriction of, however Mike eloquently put it, a, what's the terminology for the restriction?
Permit be willfully terminated.
Willfully terminated.
Jeff, I'm the applicant.
I
If
understand.
if you were to buy my property, it would still be me as the applicant, and I would be held liable as the applicant, not you.
Yeah.
If you look at the application.
So the only thing is that special permit law in Connecticut says that the special permit runs with the land. So he can say that, and we can all agree that here, but if somebody else buys the property and they want to start renting.
And they could argue it the other way. Yeah.
So if he has, I mean, to keep it clean, if he has no concerns with it, then putting it on there is just sort of an extra.
I'm fine with that because I don't want to increase my liabilities if I ever sell the property.
Okay. All right. So, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application with a stipulation.
I'll second that, Jeff.
That was Jeff Schillinger. Valerie? All those in favor of approving the motion?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstention again, Jeff.
And this is for Lakeside Drive. Jerry, am I not hearing you?
I voted in favor. I'm not
Mike,
on the
is that-
board there.
Mike, is that beer that you're drinking?
At 9:01, I'll wish it will be.
Yes. Okay, so Valerie, you capture that?
Yes.
Okay, So the application is approved with the restrictions, and Mike, you'll get her that language.
Yeah, so before we move on, I can read to you what I have drafted so that it's not like I'm making it up later. The applicant, the applicant hereby acknowledges that such special permit shall be willfully terminated upon any future sale of the property.
And that's what our motion applies to. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to application for a 3-lot subdivision, PZ-22-4, 385/393 Pumpkin Hill Road. Owner is T. Bunte. Excuse me if I kill that. Applicant is Dory Famiglietti.
So I spoke to Dory this afternoon. There was an issue with the abutters mailings, so they have given us an extension to January so they can re-notice.
Okay, very good.
So-
Mike, you're looking all that much better. Okay,
I just
great.
need a motion to basically accept the extension and continue this to January.
Can I have a motion to accept the extension?
So moved, Janet.
Second,
Seconded by Jerry Dufresne. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, home stretch. Here we go. So discussion on the Public Act 21-29 opt-out and recommendations to be sent to the Board of Selectmen. We've kind of discussed this somewhat. We can move things along unless there's further discussion on this and what we want to do. Is there a motion on the board to opt out of
make a motion to opt out.
Motion to adopt.
Jerry
Motion.
opts, Jerry motions, Richard Williams seconds. All those in favor of opting out and sending our recommendation on to the Board of Selectmen? Say
Aye.
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 Aye,
All those opposed? Abstentions? Very good. So we will opt out of that, but it will become part of what we work on for our affordable housing. And Mike, you're going to inform Chris for the selectmen's meeting?
I sure will. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, receipt of application PZ-22-9, applicant for short-term rental at 88 Ashford Lake Drive, owner applicant J. Fall. Mike, we've received the application. All fees have been paid.
Correct.
Site plan
Yep.
and any issues out there about receipt?
Nope. We will move forward with the abutters notifications and legal notices after tonight's meeting.
And should those follow through, then we will have it on for a hearing for next month, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to receive the application PZ-22-9 for 88 Ashford Lake Drive short-term rental.
So moved, Jeff.
Jeff Schillinger moves. Is there a second?
I'm second, Alex.
Alex Castillo seconds. All those in favor of receipt of the application?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved, applicant received. Item F is the PZC 2023 meeting schedule. Alex, do we have to vote on this anymore? I thought that went away.
I'm not sure. I'm used to, I don't think we voted on it last year, so I think we're
I
fine.
thought, Mike, is there a requirement anymore?
Yes,
There
you
is?
need to, I think that just because everything was COVID crazy last year, we had to get them filed by a certain time with the town clerk, but you do need to vote because you're technically approving the dates and the location and the time and
Okay. I thought the
don't,
governor's,
don't mean
governor's
take-
thing, there was something, no requirement. Maybe that was it, that it was a.
I think it's
executive
not gonna
order.
hurt if we vote on it.
No,
during the executive orders, I believe that there was the ability to do it in consultation with the chair. I can't remember, but
okay.
don't get me in trouble with Sherry.
No.
She didn't say anything when I sent it to her, so.
Okay, so everyone, if you would review, we have our meeting scheduled. Let's see, normally, what jumps up at us? I see October 10th as opposed to a Monday or Tuesday because of the holiday. 10th, 12th, May 8th, April 10th. February 13th, President's Day is probably the 20th, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
Jeff, that schedule specifies that it's gonna be in a room at the town hall. Does that,
Yeah.
does that mean that our Zoom meetings are gonna go away?
Not as of this date. Yeah. How are most people, do you have any idea how people are handling that? Are they putting in that it's a combination of either in-person or hybrid or all virtual or?
So usually you will put a note on the meeting schedule that says unless otherwise noted, or location to be noted on the agenda.
So Jeff, just my 2 cents worth.
Yes, sir.
I'm really tired of Zoom meetings and team meetings, and I'm all in favor of in-person meetings back at the town building.
Okay, I fully understand both your frustration and your need for that person-to-person contact. I agree with you. I've been doing Zoom meetings for work for the umpteen number of years here now. However, what happens is that there are requirements of us to provide electronic access, as well as if we have some type of a hybrid meeting. Actually, the requirement is to allow electronic access to the meetings, isn't it, Michael?
No. Excuse me.
Yes, Valerie.
You only have to provide electronic access if it's a board member who can't come in person.
Right.
Is that
So-
something we have the ability to do?
So we have, the law requires that we accommodate the request of a board member. We are obligated to accommodate a request for a board member to attend virtually. If received within 48 hours or prior to 48 hours of the meeting, we are obligated to accommodate an in-person request for a resident, but not a virtual. So if you're having a virtual meeting and 3 days before the hearing, someone calls and says, I can't attend virtually, then we would have to provide them with a physical place to attend the meeting. But they have to request it more than 48 hours. I am meeting tomorrow with the town's IT staff, consulting IT staff, to review their report, which outlines the technology that would be required to make the town hall essentially hybrid meeting ready. So that you could, the problem that we have is that we advertise all of our stuff as public hearings, and I have to know where the meeting is going to be and when. So I can't advertise a hearing to be in a certain venue or certain location or certain format, and then a day before the meeting have everything change. So the idea would be if you move to an in-person meeting and we had to run it as a hybrid, the room would have that technology and we could spin that up without having ruined the notice for the public hearing. So now that we will have an understanding of the technology required, we can get things moving so that it'll basically be ready to go and we can flip a switch rather than having to re-notice the hearing. If you notice the way that our legal notices run now and our agendas, et cetera, it all points to details for how to attend this meeting will be posted on the agenda. So if you go to in person, I'd have to notice the location of the room and the town hall, et cetera.
All right, so I think kind of in light of, what we've been through in the last couple of years, which everybody kind of recognizes, that we should at least explore moving in that direction, since it seems to be the way things are going to go in the future. we should have the technology to do that and the means to do that. And try to get back to some person-to-person interaction and productivity in these meetings.
I won't take resentment to the fact you don't think these meetings are productive, Jeff.
No, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry if you understood it that way. I think they're more productive when you have person-to-person interaction. That's all.
I understand the point you're making. So,
Well,
again,
and I
didn't mean to be so flip. So, yes, Janet.
I have to say, the few hybrid meetings I've been to have not been very satisfactory. I think an all Zoom meeting is much better than a hybrid meeting. That said, I think it is always better to meet in person. But COVID and flu are getting high numbers again. So I think we need to look at that as well before we decide what to do.
I would have to say that the best hybrid meeting that I attended had to do with the Willington issue of the warehouse being built over by 32. Not only was it enjoyable for Mike, but it's just, just seeing the number of people that were able to address such a meeting, 150, yeah, 150 in person and 150 online. Obviously we won't be approaching those numbers for our short-term rental hearings and things like that. But, it was well run overall, I really think. So I think once we get practiced with it, and once the town has the technology and the ability and the wherewithal to do that, I think offering the virtual access for people helps in attendance, helps in the number of people that show up for meetings, as opposed to some of the in-person. And I'm not going by our attendance is the requirement, but I think the involvement of the community when it comes to being able to access it or go in person, having both will be an advantage overall for those who feel that we work best when we're working together as a unit, and those that just prefer to access from the safety and lack of weather conditions and such from their own home.
I
So
agree with that, Jeff. I'm all in favor of giving people that option.
So we will work toward that.
Yeah. Okay.
We will work toward that, Jeff. I think it's a matter of once Mike has the understanding, and we can set some policy and some procedures so that we're not scrambling each month when it comes to hearings and dates and warning, because that's a big thing, is warning the meeting so that all people are aware of when, where, and how they access us.
Sure. I agreed. I think the times dictate that we look into that technology and move forward.
And we are. Is that the OWL technology, Mike? Still?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we
Yeah,
are.
Jeff,
Go ahead.
sorry, not to belabel the point, but the key with hybrid is having the right technology, and then all the individuals in the room have to be cognizant that they need to speak with some level of their voice so the folks on the phone can hear.
Right.
Technically, I've been in hybrid meetings for almost 20 years now. It's just been amplified in the past couple years. And the biggest issue I've always had, if I'm the one on the phone, is I can't hear a damn word anyone in the room's saying because they're not near the microphone.
Right.
We're getting better. We're getting better and better with microphones, but like the funny thing is, like, my company just built a new building a couple of years ago, and then they just redid things in the building through COVID, and the microphones are still junk.
I fully understand, because I have a group of hospital blood bank supervisors that I bring in on a quarterly basis. I used to bring them in anyways. And I was trying to develop so they could teleconference in as opposed to traveling from Fairfield County or whatever. And the big issue was like herding cats. If one of them started to laugh or someone had a joke or something, you can't hear anything if you're on the other line. It's just a mishmash. So that's always a issue I've always had. Anyways, going back to the meeting schedule. So we are good on the dates. We just need some other statement of as indicated on the agenda. Is that what we're looking for, Mike? At this point?
Yeah, I think you can add a line that says location, to be determined or as noticed on the agenda.
Can we
Okay.
just put on it, it's add to it unless otherwise noted?
Yep,
That work? I
perfect.
can just change that.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So we're good with the dates. All those in favor of the date of the scheduled meetings?
Aye.
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 Hey, Jeff, since you have an item G on the agenda,
I'm sorry?
since you have an item G with no title on it, I abstained for the 2 votes on the short-term rentals because I'm, and frankly, had no idea when we approved the language for short-term rentals that it would turn out to be such a involved thing for Planning and Zoning Commission. I don't know how we make a motion or consider, but basically this seems to be something that should be handled by the Ashford Lake and Lake Chaffee commissions, not planning and zoning as far as approving each of these. If we look at the 2 that we had tonight, the one that we disapproved, it was, based a lot on the personalities of the people. The one we approved was,
No, it had nothing to do with the personalities, Dick. You're going way off bounds here. I mean, it had to do with the fact of meeting the requirements of the regs. The regs
and
don't just apply to the lake, they apply to all RA zones. So if someone wants to be on top of a mountain as opposed to at the lake, it just so happens that a number of these are coming out from the lake
okay,
properties now.
all I'm putting forth is that we consider, is this something that we want to be involved in? That's all I'm not saying what the what we should or should not do. It's just that I had no idea when I approved this, months ago, that we would end up with such detailed discussions on each individual application.
Well, I'm not getting into a discussion on this because we can't just add item G and have you discuss on this. Dick, if you want to talk to me about this offline, we can talk about it offline. That's fine. But we do have another item from unfinished business that just to give an update. So I'm moving to unfinished business that we moved on the agenda regarding 154 Westford Hill Road. Mike, can we go into executive session?
Yes, you can.
Excuse me, I need a motion for going into executive session.
So moved.
Jerry moves, Janet seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we are returning from executive session, Valerie, at 9:22. Last item on the agenda, zoning and officers report. Mike, you got anything for us that you really want to share besides that bottle?
It's empty. No, we've had a lot of interest in the short-term rentals, and from what I'm hearing, it's because all of these conversations are happening with the lake districts, and so there are property owners that don't want to be in a position where they won't have the ability to, so they're trying to get in before the lake districts make these decisions. Our land use admin person is out on maternity leave, so we have a new person temporarily in the office, so things have been a little bit chaotic trying to do that. And I mentioned I'll be working with the town's IT folks to try to bring the town closer to hybrid meeting technology. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay, very good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You got it.
Jerry, Seconded.
I will.
Dick Williams seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And have a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Be safe, be well. I hope the weather treats you nice. And I hope you have great holidays. Thank you for all your efforts. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you,
too.
Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Same to
And
you,
to
Jeff.
all.
Happy
Take care.
holidays.